Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I rise to talk about another vital program that we must reauthorize and continue before it expires. That's the National Flood Insurance Program. Right now, that is due to completely expire at the end of May. So I wanted to bring this to everyone's attention, particularly that of the Majority Leader, so we take this up in time as soon as possible. Put it in line absolutely as soon as possible so that this can be extended and there will be no interruption. Madam President, this is an important program for the country, provides vital flood insurance for millions of Americans. Many of those properties cannot have a real estate closing on them, cannot be transferred without that important flood insurance. And it's particularly important in my home state of Louisiana, where the risks of flooding, coastal and otherwise, are even greater than the national average. Now, Madam President, unfortunately, we've been on a path the last few years of just barely hobbling along, really using a Band-Aid approach to extend this necessary program just a little bit at a time. This got to its worst state in 2010, when we not only extended it just a little bit at a time, but we actually allowed it to lapse, to expire for several days at a time on 4 different occasions, a total of 53 days. Now, what happened? Each of those times the program expired, many real estate closings, tens of thousands of real estate closings around the country came to a screeching halt. They were canceled. They were put off. Here we are in a very soft economy trying to eke out of a real estate-led recession, and yet for no good reason, because of our inability to, frankly, get our act together and organize ourselves and extend this non-controversial program. We had lapses in the program, and thousands of real estate closings were put off. That lapse occurred, as I said, in 2010, 4 different times for a total of 53 days. Since then, Madam President, we've improved a little bit. We've extended the program for 6 months at a time under legislation I've introduced. But now we need to take the next step and not just continue to hobble along, but have a full reauthorization with important bipartisan reforms of this National Flood Insurance Program. Madam President, there's been a lot of work done in that regard. The U.S. House has done a complete reauthorization bill, and they reported that bill by an overwhelming vote of 406 to 22 last July 2nd. So they've acted, they've done their part going on a year ago, about 9 months ago. Here on the Senate side, we've made important bipartisan progress. On the Banking Committee, which is the committee of jurisdiction, we've worked hard to put together a full 5-year reauthorization bill with reforms on a bipartisan process. As ranking member of the relevant subcommittee, I've put a lot of work into this with many others, including my subcommittee chairman, John Tester. And we reported that bill through the entire committee. It got a strong report out of committee and is ready for action on the Senate floor. And so now, Madam President, we need to take that next step. We need to get it on the Senate floor, pass it through here, and reconcile it with the House bill. There are no major substantive obstacles. This is a true bipartisan effort. We've worked well together and through a number of issues. Really, the only issue is getting time on the Senate floor and moving this forward so that we can do this full-scale 5-year reauthorization before the program expires this May 31st. So again, Madam President, I just come to urge all of us, and in particular the Majority Leader who sets the schedule, to schedule this, to find that time, to put it in line for as soon as possible. We're on the Violence Against Women Act, which we support being on. I believe next we're moving to student loans. I have no problem with that. Let's put this important measure in line right after that as soon as possible so we can take it up and accomplish this task well before the May 31st deadline. This can get done. As I said, there are few, if any, substantive hurdles to this. We can get this done. We can produce a long-term reauthorization. We can produce good reforms in that bill, as we have in the Senate committee bill, as the House has. We just need to move it through the process. And I certainly commit to everyone, starting with the majority leader, that if we get that minimal amount of time on the Senate floor, we'll certainly work to have that process run as smoothly and as quickly as possible. I've worked with Senator Tester in that regard. Toward that end, we'll continue to work through the Senate floor. Finally, in support of this plea, Madam President, let me ask unanimous consent to introduce in the record this letter dated February 13th of this year. This letter is to the majority and minority leader from a long list of senators, both parties, urging that we take this action, urging that we schedule this for the Senate floor absolutely as soon as possible and get this job done. As I said, this letter was dated February 13th. Obviously, a few months have passed since then, and the clock is ticking, and that clock runs out on May 31st. So again, Madam President, I urge us, particularly the majority leader, to please put this necessary and important and bipartisan legislation in line for floor consideration as soon as possible. We can get this done. We can get this done by the current deadline. We can get this done for the good of the American people and on a bipartisan basis. And I urge us all to work toward that end, as John Tester and I have been doing, as the committee chair and ranking member have been doing. And I certainly know the ranking member of the committee, Senator Shelby, strongly supports this plea. So, Madam President, at this time, I ask unanimous consent to submit this letter for the record.
Without objection.
Thank you, Madam President. Again, I hope we all come together in well enough time to take care of this important business also. I bring it up now, well before the deadline, because the clock is ticking. A Senate bill would have to be reconciled with the House. We need to get floor time absolutely as soon as possible, and I look forward to that, and I look forward to working with Senator Tester and others on that on the Senate floor. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.